Hi, and welcome to Raz Reviews. This is another special episode where I'm going to be talking about the second half of the last season of Game of Thrones. So it's not really a review per se, it's more of an analysis or an explanation or a personal therapy session that I can afford. I've waited an entire week after the last episode came out to do this because I've been kind of too angry to do it. If you've seen my video, What is Wrong with the Long Night, you can find it in the description below. You'll know how much of a problem I had with that episode. And really, ever since then, episode 4, 5, and 6 have just been in this downhill trajectory. And the funny thing is, after episode 3, not everybody was on the hate wagon. But then episode 4 came out and more people were upset, and then 5, and then 6, and now most people are upset. And I wanted to avoid having the same kind of knee reaction where I just put a camera and yell at my lens. I want to sort of provide some sort of perspective here. For those who don't really understand why all the hate and why everybody's upset, I'm going to try and provide an explanation for you. And for those who are really, really upset, I'm going to try to find some sort of resolve for you guys. If you really understand why things went so south, maybe you'll be able to make peace with it, because we need to make peace with this. For those of us who are disappointed in Season 8 and who are big fans of Game of Thrones and feel let down, it's a hard thing to accept, but we have to accept it and we have to move on. So let's try. There are people out there that have liked this episode or haven't hated it as much. I am not going to argue with anybody who likes what happened, who thinks the end of these characters and these storylines is satisfying or not so bad for them or even good. That means you had a really nice 6 weeks. And I'm happy for you, genuinely, because this feeling of waiting this long and feeling so disappointed is horrible. I don't wish it upon anybody. I'm not gonna come and take that away from you and bring you to this side, because this side sucks and nobody wants to be here. So I'm not gonna argue. If you liked it, congratulations. I didn't. I personally feel like I'm in a breakup from a relationship. I've invested so much into this show. I'm such a big fan. Like, my house is full of Game of Thrones stuff. It's insane. And this final season has diminished my joy for the show, and it hurts. It sucks. And a lot of people are telling me, well, you know, Game of Thrones has been amazing for like 6 seasons or 5 seasons or 7 seasons or whatever. You shouldn't hate it now that the final season is bad. But I just can't help feel bad about even that right now. Maybe later I'll feel better and I'll go back and rewatch. But right now, it feels like a fresh breakup. Like if I'm with somebody for 7 years and everything's been okay for the first 5, and then like by 6th and 7th year we start having problems, and then in year 8 they cheat on me, I'm gonna be like, oh, well, the first 5 years we had were great. No, it's horrible. So I felt like episode 3 was me catching my relationship cheating on me. And then I've been watching the episode since. It's like staying with that person, but it's just not the same. And then it gets worse when I watch the behind the scenes, which I'm always watching. I stopped, by the way, because I'm just sitting there watching these people talk, and it was making me angry. Like, stop talking. What you're saying is wrong. It's stupid. I guess she forgot about Euron Greyjoy's fleet. No! It's like my cheating partner comes and shows me a video of them cheating, and look at we did it. Look at the lighting. It's beautiful. This is why we did. I don't want to look at that. It felt like it was rubbing salt in my wounds. It really sucked. Now, no matter what we say about the show in terms of story and writing, nobody can deny how incredible the production of the show is, and it's one of the things that attracted me to it in the first place. I'm obsessed with it because it's incredible. The amount of talent and hard work and miracles that have gone into making the show over the last 8 seasons is something that we cannot ignore. Production design team, the camera team, the editors, the special effects guys, it's crazy. And in this season, as bad as the writing was and as the storytelling was, the production is top-notch and maybe the best in the last 8 seasons, and nobody's talking about that. Of course, the petition of redoing Season 8 is ridiculous and absurd. And I know why it got like, what, 1 million or 1.3 million signatures. That's because 1.3 million people want to see the show remade. It's because these people are frustrated. And out of their frustration, they just want to do something to get their message out there. Asking to remake the show is a little bit disrespectful to the hardworking people who worked on it. And the thing is, seeing such incredible production and talented people working on the show makes me upset, because they've put all this effort and creativity while they are working with a script that's essentially written in crayons. There are a lot of issues with episode 4 in terms of story. I'm to be convinced that Dany cannot see an entire fleet from the top of the dragon. Dumb. The fact that Euron Greyjoy managed to kill Dany's dragon, like now he and the Night King are on equal footing in terms of damage dealt. The fact that Cersei, for some reason, had her entire arsenal of enemies standing in front of her, and she didn't fire on them, and she let them live for some reason. And then episode 5 came, and this is where I've had most of my online arguments, and it's about Dany's transition into Mad Queen, which is something that nobody will ever convince me is even remotely logical in what we've seen so far. People were telling me that she's been set up for the last, it's been foreshadowed. What's been foreshadowed about Dany is not that she's a mad queen. What's been foreshadowed is that she is ruthless and that she is ambitious and that she sometimes will make some rash decisions when she doesn't get what she wants. From being ruthless and rash to a mad genocidal maniac is a huge gap. And there is no bridge between the two. There is no event that is convincingly strong enough to get this person to go from being a ruthless person who's never harmed an innocent in her life to just murdering innocent women and children in the streets. It's such a turn that is completely unmotivated and completely not earned that it just didn't make sense and ruined the character. All Targaryens can be mad. The gods flip a coin when a Targaryen is born. When they're born, which means they have to be sort of crazy or at least extreme since the moment they're born. Kind of like, I don't know, Viserys. I can totally imagine Viserys on top of a dragon burning King's Landing despite winning it. I would see that and I wouldn't feel like that's crazy. Like, man, he's always been an asshole. But Dany wasn't. Dany was protecting innocent. Yes, she has been extreme in her punishments of bad people. And sure, is there an argument to be made that maybe one day she could become mad? Sure, but the operative word here is become. She has to descend into madness. This implies time, not in 2 days or a week or, I don't know, 5 seconds on a dragon staring at a kingdom that she's won. She just spent 45 minutes barbecuing the entire city with apparently unlimited power now. Literally an episode ago, the dragons were not that strong, both of them, and they were taken down by like one scorpion. And then the next episode, there's like 10 of them and like nobody can touch Drogon. Guys, there's a big issue here with lapse in logic. If you think about it for more than 2 seconds, it stops making sense. It's a disaster. Even Emilia Clarke, I never felt like she played Dany as mad or insane. So everybody's saying she's the mad queen. I never felt like that. Felt she played her as somebody who's hurt and upset. Yeah, she's lost a lot of people. By the way, everybody has. They don't all go mad. Jon has lost a lot. And he's also Targaryen. He didn't go mad. So there you go. Ever since episode 5 and then moving on to episode 6, it's been a complete and absolute flushing down the toilet of all the stories and character arcs that we have been following. It's just, they've been thrown out the window completely, and that's what people have a problem with. It's the lapse in logic in the plot lines, and it's also the lapse in logic in the characters. All the characters make stupid, dumb decisions that don't make any sense. They don't act like themselves, or they just don't do anything. Or they do something that doesn't make sense that comes out of nowhere. None of it makes sense. Cersei, the person who destroyed the Sept of Baelor, who has gone through tremendous things, who's learned from all the things she's seen. She's the person who's been in King's Landing the longest. What was her plan? Her plan was to stand on a balcony, drink some wine, and wait for the Golden Company, elephantless Golden Company, to attack the Dothraki in open field. It's so dumb. And also she had scorpions on top of the walls, and she had Euron's Greyjoy in the back in the water. This was her plan.
Did you say Euron's Greyjoy?
Did I?
And she had Euron's Greyjoy in the back.
She did have Euron's Greyjoy in the back. Why, by the way? Why did Cersei sleep with Euron Greyjoy? What was the point of that scene where he courts her and then she goes no and then she goes yes? What was the point of Cersei being pregnant? She said she was going to use the innocent against her. She said that, but she didn't. The innocents surrendered, the Lannister army surrendered, and the bells were rung, and nothing was used against Dany. Had she not gotten on Drogon and blown up the entire city, she would have won and Cersei would have literally had nothing. What was her plan? So essentially, Cersei's character arc kind of ended in a whimper. She just like awkwardly walked away from Clegane Bowl, and then she found Jaime, and then she died in rubble. She didn't do anything this entire season, guys. Complained about elephants, slept with Euron Greyjoy, drank wine from a balcony. 3 things. She ordered the death of Missandei. Anything else? And then you have Jaime's character arc. He's been redeemed. He's been on this journey. He lost his hand. We found out so much about him. He became so lovable. And then he just went back to one. Completely backtracked all of his character development. Slept with Brienne for no reason. Left her for no reason. And then he went and hugged Cersei and died. On the way he fought Euron Greyjoy. For no reason. Him and Euron Greyjoy had like a Pirates of the Caribbean fan service fight. And then like he stabs him. Why? That stab didn't even kill him. And then he goes and finds Cersei somehow. And they just hug and they die by bricks. Wow. Valonqar? No. Then you have Tyrion's character development going down the drain. He used to be the smartest man alive. Now he's dumb. He makes dumb decisions. I also want to be fair to D&D and the writing of the show. As much as I'm angry about it and everybody's been yelling about it online, I want to bring some perspective a little bit. These guys never signed on to write the ending of A Song in Ice and Fire. They signed on to adapt the books that have already been written, and they did a magnificent job at that. And there's a huge difference between adaptation and interpretation. And they had to make this transition, I think unwillingly, because the books didn't get finished. I don't think they thought that when they did Game of Thrones season 1, that 10 years later, the books would still be unwritten. I love George R.R. Martin. He's a genius, but he did kind of screw everybody over in this. And the thing is, when they were working with the material they were doing an amazing job, and then suddenly they had to end the story. But George R.R. Martin gave them the ending from the book, or sort of the ending from the book, so they knew where they were going. But they didn't know that from the beginning. They knew that somewhere in the middle when they diverted away from the books. So once they had that ending in mind, they had 2 choices. Choice number 1 was to aim everything they had to get them from this point that they were at until the ending that they know from the books. And that required more seasons and more episodes because you need a lot of development in that direction. There's a lot of stuff that they dropped that now doesn't make sense after we got the ending, especially when it comes to Bran's story. They left him out of season 5 completely. I don't think they were planning on ending his story the way that it ended, but when they found out the ending, they just kind of did this sharp turn and got there. So they should have, if they were going towards the ending of the book, they should have added more seasons, more episodes, more time and more development to get to those endings so that they're sort of satisfying. Or, which is I think what they should have done, do your original ending. Make an ending that fits what you've already set up. In the books, it makes sense that Dany would end up dead or mad or crazy or do something extreme. I can see that happening eventually. There's so much details in there that's not here that makes that make sense. Same thing with Bran. Bran's story and his development is not everybody's favorite, but still, I can see if eventually he sits on the Iron Throne or becomes the king of Westeros. Sure. I can even see it in the show from season 4. Like, if you told me in season 4, when Bran was traveling to see that three-eyed raven, you tell me this kid's gonna become king, I'd be like, huh, that would be interesting then. But not after everything that has happened in season 5 and 6 and 7. Fit the storyline that you were already feeding us, because what we have now doesn't fit either. It's not long enough and complicated enough and developed enough to feel earned like the books, and it's not the ending that makes sense in terms of what we've seen so far. It's a lose-lose situation. And I know that the expectations are high. And I know that that plays into it. But this has nothing to do with expectations. It's just not a good ending. It's impossible to please everyone, but when you displease most of your viewership, there's a problem that we have to recognize. Even people who like the ending still feel like it's rushed, still feel like it's not developed enough, but they just accept it and they make peace with it. That's not good enough. I knew that the ending was going to be bittersweet. It's still, the show is ending. We've been invested in it for so long. There's a lot of stuff that probably would not work out the way I wanted it in my head, but this is just not bittersweet. This is just bitter. The show ended, which sucks. I'm going to miss it, but also it ended badly, and that sucks even more. And 7 episodes in season 7 and 6 episodes in season 8 was definitely not enough. The last half hour of that finale is a whole season, you guys. It feels like a full stop before it's emotional or creative time. If I was gonna go back to my relationship analogy, the final episode really felt like me having to go one last time and see my cheating lover one more time at the divorce lawyer. and just sit there and like sign the papers. And it took too long. The episode's pacing was garbage. It was so dragged out. Everybody was just staring at everybody. It felt like Twilight. Tyrion took 1,000,000 years to walk through the rubble to find Jaime and Cersei, who, by the way, if you look at the space, didn't really need to die because there were areas where there was no rubble. I thought that the whole thing collapsed on them. No, just part of the roof they were standing under. Move to the right, just a few steps, and they would have survived. Dumb. It took Jon what felt like 5 years to climb up the Nazi stairs and talk to Dany. And then we have Arya walking and staring, and we are looking at her walking and staring. And then she reaches Jon, and then she just says, hey, bro, I'm going to head out of here. See ya. And she leaves. Why is she even there? Because she's a fan favorite? She actually didn't do anything in the last 3 episodes. After killing the Night King, you know, she went into King's Landing, she went into Red Keep. The Hound was like, don't do it. She's like, okay. She left. She ran around and Deus Ex'd Arya her way out of a dragon attack. And then she went looking for Jon and Dany. We thought she was going to kill Dany. She got a white horse that, by the way, she rode and then it disappeared. So what was that about? Nothing. And then she found Jon and then she left. Why? What's the point? What's the point? What's the point? So the good scenes in the final episode were, like, the good moments for me was Jon petting Ghost finally, being treated like the good boy he is, and Brienne writing about Jaime Lannister in the book, and Tyrion fixing the chairs, because that reminds me of one of my favorite moments of season 4, and that's pretty much it. I hated everything else. I hated it. I think that the conversation between Jon and Tyrion was really long, and the dialogue was super on the nose and very direct and cheesy, to be honest. Tyrion used talk no jutsu to convince Jon to go from she's my queen to actually murdering her in the span of 20 minutes. Is kind of dumb and stupid and rushed. And then he goes to murder Dany in the throne room. That was the dumbest thing that has ever happened on Game of Thrones because it was so stupid and generic. I literally cannot believe. Every couple of days, I wake up in the morning, I'm making my coffee, I'm like, I can't believe they did the off-screen hug stab on Game of Thrones. Do you know how cheesy that is? Do you know how many times we've seen that? Like, I love you too, hug, kiss, stab. This is what I was talking about in episode 3. They are going with these generic tropes that literally, the whole point of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire is to be against those tropes. Give us what we don't expect. This is the most cliche way for somebody to kill someone they love that they have to kill. And then that brings us to the second worst moment of the episode and probably the show. It's that little meeting between the lords and ladies of Westeros. Back in the day when we were watching Game of Thrones, every person sitting on that chair had a backstory, had a motivation, had a goal and conflict with each other, and every word they say was like drenched in subtext, and that's what made the show so awesome. Now it's just, oh, by the way, this is the Prince of Dorne, we don't know him, Yara's here, this guy is there, Sam's here, and they're just here. We don't know anybody's motivations, we don't know anything, they're just making a decision. And the fact that they nominate Bran as king is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. I actually laughed out loud. And I think that's one of the highlights of this episode for me, is that at this point, finally, Game of Thrones crossed the line into bad funny. I laughed. When he said Bran, I was like, no way! Why? It's really ironic that he's talking about good storytelling, that it cannot be defeated. Well, that's clearly untrue because the show has defeated good storytelling. It destroyed it. It did kill it. And then he says, who has a better story than Bran? Oh, I don't know. Jon Snow, Arya, Sansa, you, Tyrion, Varys, anybody? The funny thing is that even we, who know Bran's story very well, think it's not that interesting. He fell out of the window, he lost his legs, he ran away from Winterfell, he went north, he met the Three-Eyed Raven, got downloaded a bunch of data, came back and stared at everybody. Imagine the lords and ladies who were sitting on those chairs. What do they know about Bran? What's his story? Makes no sense. You'll never convince me. Bran the broken logic. Oh, we're just gonna ignore about the secret Targaryen who's riding dragons and who, I don't know, died and came back. United the North, brought the wildlings. Oh my God. That guy's story is not as interesting as this. He's the king now. And then John went to the Night Watch. Also very funny. Like, why is there a Night Watch? What are they watching? There's nothing to watch. The Night King is dead. The Night Watch, Night King, no more logic. Oh, because we need a place for broken men and bastards. Well, you know, you have jail. Like, there are dungeons for that. Put them in the army. Make use of them. Let them crop. Put them out in the fields. Make use of them so they can benefit the realm, maybe? And then he just goes north of the wall and becomes the king beyond the wall, I guess, with the wildlings. Cool. Again, makes sense if you go back to season 3 and season 4. Doesn't make sense now after he's come back. That's what I mean. That's an ending in the book that I can understand, but not an ending I understand here. They made this big deal about him being Rhaegar Targaryen's son, and Varys wrote these letters, sent them out, and apparently people know that he's the rightful heir, but nobody brought it up. Nobody discussed it in the meeting. If his Targaryenism was still kept a secret and then he went beyond the wall and became king there, okay, sure. But the fact that it was made into such a big deal and became like the gossip talk of the century, and everybody was talking about it for the last couple of episodes, and then it went nowhere, made it really dumb. And Jon Snow's character got butchered on the show. He was a spineless idiot. He couldn't make a decision to save his life. He didn't do anything with his powers or the fact that he came back from the dead. None of it mattered. None of it mattered. He did nothing. He just walked around and talked and growled at things and stared at things. Arya became Arya the Explorer. She Christopher Columbus, and now she's going west. Where's she going? Who knows? She's going to Westworld season 3. I don't know. We spent an entire season on her developing her facelift powers. I don't know, a faceless person, assassin. And in the last season, she didn't use it at all. Last but not least, the question that I keep getting asked the most. Oh, if you know so much, how would you write it? How would you end it? What would you do better? So for the sake of fun, here's how I would have done the final episode of Game of Thrones, given the material that I have. Because if it wasn't for the material that I have, a lot of it would be different, especially the fact that it wouldn't be this short. There'd be still 3 more seasons, and I'm not going to go into that because that's another like 1-hour video. Given what we had until episode 2 of season 8, here's how I would have ended the show. In episode 3, when the Army of the Dead attacks, the attack would happen, many people would be lost, including Brienne. Brienne would have died then and there, defending Jaime and protecting him. If I have to keep Arya killing the Night King, I still would, but I would have done it in a way where Bran kind of planned it and maybe worked into her and used her power and everything that she's trained for and everything that he's trained for to combine together and take down the Night King. Cool, the Night King gets taken down, but a lot of people are lost in the fray. In episode 4 would be the actual attack on King's Landing, not episode 6. Dany would do everything the same. She'd go to attack. This whole Missandei getting kidnapped and decapitated wouldn't happen because it's pointless. Euron Greyjoy is pointless. She attacks King's Landing. During the attack, Rhaegal dies, not on the way there because that's dumb. And now it's just her and Drogon, and she's like lost her mind, but she's still holding it together. That's when she goes a little crazy. She destroys the Scorpions then, because Rhaegal died, and she attacks and kills a bunch of people, but not the crazy manic stuff, like the soldiers. She destroys the Golden Company, and then people surrender like they did, and then she comes down, the bells ring, everything is good, right? And she's down on the ground with the dragon, and then Cersei from on top of the tower, Qyburn comes to her and he's like, we have to go, the Lannisters have surrendered, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, do it now, burn them all. And then the wildfire reserves explode and a lot of people die in this. If Arya is there running away from it, sure. And then she basically frames her for this attack. Maybe even injuring her or injuring somebody else, or maybe Missandei dies there in that flagship operation, kind of. Dany goes crazy when she sees Missandei die, or Grey Worm, or whoever, and she goes on the dragon and she attacks the Red Keep, not the city. The city's already burning with wildfire, it's gone to hell. She destroys the Red Keep, but before she does that, so inside there's Cersei. Jaime maybe goes to her, goes to save her, goes to stop her, whatever. And then while he's there, when he finds her giving the command to burn them all. And that would be a full circle for him because he got his title as Kingslayer, which he hates, by the way, because he was stopping the Mad King from doing what his sister, the person that he thought he loved, doing that. He kills her, Valonqar prophecy, check. When he kills her, and he cries and he gets devastated. That's when Dany destroys the keep on top of his head, killing him as well with her. They die embracing, but he actually is the one who killed her. Everybody dies. Cool stuff. After that, there is consequences to that. People believe that Dany did it, not Cersei, because it's her father's weapons and it's her father's plan, and that she's just like her father, she's a mad queen. That's when she becomes isolated. That's when she descends into madness. That's when she decides that being a good and merciful ruler will not work. People still hate her. She is a conqueror and she's going to become what she's become. And then she starts conquering and like rampaging villages. She takes a Dothraki and they just go nuts. And she does the things that she was doing the Nazi speech about, but she actually does some of that stuff and becomes crazy. And that's when the political lines become crossed and wired, and it makes Jon want to kill her. Jon and Grey Worm definitely will have a standoff where Grey Worm is defending Dany because he's upset that Missandei died in the attack of King's Landing. They fight, he defeats him. He goes for Dany. While he's going for Dany, Drogon goes nuts, he blows fire on them. Dany doesn't die. Jon gets hurt from the fire because he's not like Dany, even though he's Targaryen, but while he's doing it, his sword is on fire from the dragon flame, and then he stabs her in the heart and kills her. It's a big epic thing. It's Azor Ahai coming back. Cool, and then she dies, and then it's sad, right? But there's like until she dies, from before that, there's a lot of stuff happening in at least 2 episodes of her descent because of this event that has happened in King's Landing. And then in terms of who sits on the throne, I don't mind a deformed Jon, a burnt Jon, like he's like ice and fire. He has a fire mark on him from that battle with Dany. He could sit on the throne, that'd be nice, but he's like a broken person. Anybody but Bran. Anybody. I'll take Titsucker over Bran. Like, no, because he's not Bran. He's a three-eyed raven. He said it himself. Bran is in the background. I love how he's like, I cannot be a lord to anything. Bran is in the background. I'm not Bran. He's like, hey, you want to be Bran the Broken, King of Westeros? Sure, I'm Bran. Nice to meet you. The show is over now. I loved Game of Thrones. I still love it. The books are here. I've read most of them. I will continue to read them. Hopefully when the final book comes out, we'll have a better closure. It sucks that it ended this way. They really messed it up, D&D. They messed it up. And again, I understand how this happened to them and why. And I'm less angry at them now than I was last week, but I'm still pretty upset. And now I'm just living in a world post-Game of Thrones that has ended badly. And it sucks. It's going to take a while. People are telling me to watch new shows, and I'm like, I'm too hurt. I need some time. I need some space before I get into a new relation show. But hopefully I've made sense of this. Feel free to argue with me in the comment section. I will try to not argue so aggressively. As you've seen, I've been trying to be calm about this. I hope I was. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to ask me what you'd like me to review for your next. See ya.